It is March 9th, 2026. How many months is that? Less than 9 months since the day I started drafting the Solar Queen. I'm just about to finish the first draft. I'm going to finish the first draft today. Don't mind if I look really disheveled today. There's so much dry shampoo in my bangs. I really need to wash my hair. Honestly, I'm so tired that if I wasn't but a few thousand words away from finishing this first draft, I wouldn't be writing today. I'd be taking the day off to read and game and refill the well, but I'm just so damn close that I've got to finish today. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And I wasn't planning on vlogging this, but as I got closer to finishing the first draft, I figured, you know what, I should probably do a vlog of me finishing the first draft and then give some thoughts on how drafting the Solar Queen has been, but we'll get to that later. I don't want to get too distracted before I get into writing because I really want to get this done. I need to get this done. I kind of get like this at the end of a project. I kind of just get tunnel vision and I just need to finish it, and then I kind of collapse. So I'm not planning on doing a ton else that is productive this weekend. I've had a nice cozy morning and evening last night reading, which is great. I haven't been in so much of a reading slump. Like, I've still been enjoying reading, but I feel like my Nintendo Switch is like this siren that just like calls to me at the end of a long day. So I've been choosing my Switch or gaming in general over reading a lot of the time, which is fine. I think that's what I've needed. And also I just got the Switch like 2 months ago, so of course I'm gonna want to play it a lot right after getting it. I think that's very healthy. But yeah, it does feel really good to get sucked back into reading, because reading is one of the best ways I can not only fill the well, but also just keep learning about my craft, both the craft of storytelling, but also the craft of writing. I can learn about storytelling through film and video games and other things like that, but if you're a writer, you gotta read. So I always feel best when I've got my nose in at least one book. Last night, I finished reading, for the first time ever, the first book in the Mistborn trilogy, and my mind is blown. I'm obsessed. I'm so excited. I feel like I'm having the same feelings towards Brandon Sanderson's work that I had when I first got into Kate Bush. Very different fantasy author versus musician, but it's that same kind of like, oh my god, this is amazing. I now need to read everything you've written. So that's obviously going to take some time. But I finished reading the first book last night and I loved it. So good. So hooky. This morning I read a little bit of The Secret Garden, which I read for the first time last year. I tried reading this as a kid because I loved the movie. I was obsessed with the movie. However, as an 8-year-old, I couldn't get past Mary. She was just too nasty, and I know the whole point of the book is that she changes, but I as an 8-year-old, I just didn't have the patience for it, and I just wasn't used to reading unlikable characters. So I just watched the movie over and over and over again because that movie is amazing, and I can't wait to watch it after I reread this. I've always been inspired by the plot. I love the character growth that happens in that story, and that's actually a big inspiration for the Solar Queen. That's why I read this book for the first time last year, not just because I love children's classics, but also because I was about to write the Solar Queen, and the plot was heavily inspired by The Secret Garden, so I was like, I should probably actually read the source material of the movie. Loved the book, and now I'm rereading it because after I finish drafting it and after I take a little break, I will get into revision. So I'm rereading it, and I am leaving little, what are these called? Annotations. Leaving these sticky note thingies in places where I feel like there's something that I may want to mirror in my own book. My book is not a direct retelling of The Secret Garden, but it's just heavily influenced by The Secret Garden, specifically with the character growth, but also there is a secret garden in The Solar Queen. So I read a few chapters from this, and then I read the first chapter of this Beatrix Potter biography, which I picked up last spring, but I just didn't get around to reading. My plan is to read it this spring. I am extremely inspired by Beatrix Potter, both as a writer and as an illustrator, and just as a person, as a businesswoman. She's one of my heroes, definitely like a top 5, maybe even top 3 inspirational people for me. And I'm so excited to learn more about her and her life. So yes, I've had a nice cozy morning reading, and it's about noon now, and The Solar Queen sits at 171,168 words. And I think I'm going to be able to finish this in less than 5K, so I'm just going to jump right into it. I mean, first I think I'm going to make a coffee because I'm out of it. I am so tired. I'm probably going to sleep so good tonight after I'm done this draft. I need to get the draft done. I'm in that like obsessive mode where I just need to get it done. And it's good because it's going to be less than 200,000 words, the first draft. I don't know if that will be the case once the book is done, because there's things I gotta add in revision. There's scenes that I skipped over writing. There's chapters I skipped over writing because I realized I needed to write the ending so that I could write those scenes and chapters effectively. And there's also different subplots I gotta embellish. And yeah, we'll get into more of the specifics of The Solar Queen once I'm done writing the draft. Yeah, I'm just gonna get into it. The next time I talk to you, this book will be drafted. I just finished the first draft of The Solar Queen. The book now sits at 173,941 words. That's 27K-ish under my limit for the first draft. If you watched the early Solar Queen vlogs, then you'll know that my intention was to limit the first draft of this book to no more than 200,000 words. I don't really know how long the actual book will be in the end, but I imagine it will be somewhere between the length of the first book, which is 175K, somewhere between that and 300,000. I think it'll be longer than the first book. Right now it's literally almost the exact same length, but I think in the end it will be longer than this. I don't think I want the book to be 300,000 words long. I think 200,000 to 250,000 would be a good ultimate maximum. But I'm also going to see how it reads as I read through what I've written, because if it feels like it's dragging, then it might be better to shorten it. I just need to see how it reads. There's certain scenes, as I said earlier in this vlog, that I still need to write, certain chapters that I still need to write. So it will get longer in those sections, but then there may also be scenes that I can either cut out or cut in half. There's probably a lot of useless words that I can cut out. I tend to have a very wordy writing style, and I will say that while my books do tend to get longer during revision, because revision is very much a creative process for me, it's very much still me writing the book. It's me rewriting the book, or rewriting parts of the book. It's best described as surgery. That is not my word. I can't remember who I heard refer to developmental edits as surgery, but it's best described as surgery. So while I do tend to add things in revision, as well as take things out and change things, and my books do tend to get longer in revision, they also get significantly shorter in line editing, because I just go and take a very critical eye to the words of the manuscript, and I take out words that don't really serve the reading experience of the book. I think sometimes when I'm drafting, if I'm feeling a little uncertain, I'll just lean on crutch words because they make me feel safe. Like, I use the word of course well, that's 2 words, but I use the phrase, of course, way too much. It's just something that I recognize about my writing, and I still like using it some, but like I know I use it too much. So anyway, all this is to say, right now it is shorter than my original limit for the draft of the Solar Queen, and that's good because I would like to keep the word count as low as possible while still doing what I want to do with the story and the prose. I feel like there's so much to say about the process of drafting this book. This is only my second time writing an epic fantasy story. I have written now 6 novels, one of them being Aurora and Luna. Then I wrote a horror novel, which I also revised and edited. I drafted a coming-of-age story that I never revised or edited, but I did draft it. And I also drafted a collection of essays that were all kind of meant to tell one larger overarching story. I drafted that, but I never revised or edited it. And I also drafted a portal fantasy book for children, but that portal fantasy book for children ended up turning into an epic fantasy book. So it's more like I have half of the draft of an epic fantasy book done. Basically, I wrote Aurora and Luna, and then I tried writing in all these other different genres: horror, coming of age, memoir, portal fantasy, because I didn't want to pigeonhole myself into one genre. And that was kind of the advice that a lot of other writers, both that I know personally and just that I have heard the advice of, have said, is like, try different things. And I took that advice, and I'm glad I wrote those other books, but I think it was ultimately not the right advice for me, because I think that's good advice if you're kind of stuck with your project and it's not flowing and you don't really have a passion for what you're writing, but you want to write, but you don't really know what you want to write. I think it's good advice to just try all these different genres and styles. And as I said, I don't regret doing it. I learned a lot. But when I got to drafting that portal fantasy book that turned into an epic fantasy book, I realized I love writing epic fantasy. I love writing big epic fantasy books, and I also love writing fairy tales, and that is what I'm writing now. But I had to go and experience that contrast of writing these other things that I still enjoyed writing and I still learned a lot from, but that weren't like the thing that really clicked with me. And the reason why I think it was ultimately bad advice for me to try these other things is just because I have that click with epic fantasy, and I have that click with this world and these characters and this story, and I think until this series is written, I'm just gonna feel really restless. And yeah, there's this underlying restlessness that I have. It is partially my ambition. I would like to be an established author. I would like to have a good readership and would like to feel successful in that area of my life. But I think it's also just this obsession that I have with this story. Like, until it's done being written, I think I'm just always going to feel like if I'm not sitting here working on this, I'm wasting my time. That's a bit of an extreme point of view, and I'm not saying that's healthy, but that is, in essence, how I feel a lot of the time, which is why I don't know if I've really opened up about this on the channel, but here I go. That's why I often will feel so frustrated by things that get in the way of it. And there's different degrees of this frustration, and there's different kinds of this frustration. So obviously the biggest frustration that I have is having a day job, because all those hours spent, all that energy spent, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, it feels like, oh man, if I could just take those 8 hours that I spend at the day job and put them into this series, I could be done so much quicker, and then I could feel like I could finally take a breath. So that's sort of the biggest frustration, but then I also get frustrated with myself because I know I waste my time a lot, and I'm putting that in quotations for a reason. We'll get back to that. But like, I know that anytime I'm like playing my Switch, for example, or anytime I'm wasting watching a YouTube video or just doing whatever, like even other projects sometimes, even though they'll be important to me, like this YouTube channel or like my music, sometimes I'll feel like, am I wasting my time? Should I finish this book series first? And I'll just get this restlessness and this impatience because I really want to have this done because it's really important to me. But, and we're circling back now, I can't just sit and write for 24 hours a day or 16 hours a day because I would be sleeping for the other 8 theoretically. But like, I can't just sit and write forever. That is a great way to kill your writing, to kill your creativity, to kill your inspiration. My writing thrives when I have time outside in nature, when I have time that I can read, when I have time that I can game, like all those things that I do for myself that maybe seem like wastes of time on paper, hence the quotes, they actually fill me up and inspire me, and I return to my writing feeling refreshed and inspired and ready to go. And also like with reading, like, I mean, I love reading, and part of me just loves to read just because it's a way I can fill the well, but also I'm literally learning when I'm reading. I'm literally learning how to write a book well or how to not write a book well, how I want to write books, my style, what I like, what I don't like. It's really important to have this downtime. And also, like, you know, of course I would love to be doing this full time. Of course I would love to be doing this full time. But I feel like it'll happen when it's meant to happen. I feel like I just need to trust the universe on this one. And just because I would have more time, that doesn't necessarily mean that I would finish the series any sooner. My writing does thrive on having space to improve. Now, in a perfect world where money is no object, that space would be spent reading, gaming, watching movies, listening to music, working on other creative projects, traveling, hiking, camping, all that kind of fun stuff that I love. But I can't deny the fact that my day job does give me really good space from not just this project, but from writing in general and from sitting at my computer in general, because my day job is physical and it's social and it's very different from writing. So it does give me good space from writing. And sometimes my day job does exhaust me to the point where it's hard to write. But I mean, I think I chose a good day job. I chose hairdressing. That like balances with writing. Whereas I think if I chose an office job, I would struggle a lot more because I'd be sitting all day and then I'd be continuing to sit to write. So I don't even know where I was going with this ramble. I have a lot of thoughts on my mind. I think I was trying to say that this is my second time writing an epic fantasy novel, because the only other epic fantasy novel that I've written is Aurora and Luna. The Portal fantasy kind of turned into an epic, but I would need to go and like seriously revise it to truly make it an epic, or I'd need to scale it back and make it a Portal. Like, it's in a weird place. And I think one day I will get back to that story. I don't know if I'll get back to my nonfiction. I might get back to my coming of age story, and maybe I'll get back to my horror novel. I don't know. I think those books, they all taught me something about writing, something essential, and I'm grateful for them. But right now, I want to write the Sun and Moon Saga. But yeah, even though I've written now 6 novels, this is only my second epic fantasy novel, and drafting an epic fantasy novel, it takes a lot longer than it takes to draft your average novel, because my other novels were all like 45, 50, 55,000 words, and this novel is like, oh my god, it's almost 4 times that length. Or is it 4 times that length? Yeah, it's like 4 times that length. So it's just so much longer to draft it. So as you can see, if you've watched the Solar Queen writing vlogs, I've been through highs and lows with this project. And that's to be said for any project, but when it's such a long time just to get the book drafted, yeah, you can go through some real low points and some points where you're really doubting the story and you're really doubting yourself. And that was kind of scary because, I mean, I've wanted to draft this book since I finished the first draft of Aurora and Luna in 2018. So I've wanted to draft this book for like 7 years, and I always idealized what drafting it would be, and drafting it was that at times, especially in the beginning. But as the story went on, and as I got deeper into the draft, it became more confusing, and it became more messy, and it became more like, I don't know, just more like a maze, more like I was walking through the dark without any light source, just trekking through the dark woods, trying to find my way, stumbling. I had my outline, and I'm so grateful that I have my outline, because I think without it I would have struggled a lot more, and I think there would be so much more revision to do. However, I still have a lot of revision to do. I have left myself 1,289 comments. I've left them just as I've gone through the book. That's not because there's something wrong. That's just because, like, I really wanted to become an outliner with this book, but I'm still a discovery writer at heart. I think it's good that I'm learning how to outline. But my method of outlining is more like what Brandon Sanderson calls points on the map. Basically, I had all these points I would eventually hit, and I had them listed for the most part in order, but I didn't always know how I was getting to each point. I didn't do like a chapter by chapter outline. Occasionally I would pause and I would outline the next few chapters if I had a lot of ideas buzzing, but for the most part I just looked at my points and I was like, okay, we're going here, how are we going to get there? And I would just figure it out as I went. So because that's kind of my style of writing, it's like a hybrid between discovery and outlining, but it leads more towards discovery writing. Because of that, there was a lot of things where I'd be like, ooh, I need to figure this out, but I don't quite know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to leave myself a comment, and I'll just keep writing and going where the writing is flowing, and I'll get back to it, which is why I say that revision or the developmental edit, it's just such a crucial part of my writing style. So I plan on doing, well, here's the plan. I'm now going to try to leave this manuscript alone for a while. I'm going to try to leave it alone for at least a month. I actually need to go and reread Aurora and Luna for a couple of reasons. Number one, I just want to. I got the new edition of Aurora and Luna, my copy, about a month ago now, and I haven't read it yet, but my plan was when I finished the Solar Queen's draft, my plan is to go and read it because I just want to. I just want to read it. I want to cozy up on the couch and read my own book. Is that a little narcissistic? Maybe. But you know what? That's also 11 years work, so I just want to enjoy it. I want to enjoy it. Number two, I just want to read through it because I want to see, before the book gets re-released May 1st, I want to see if there's anything I just need to fix, not with the manuscript, but with the book's formatting, because, you know, there might just be something that just needs to be cleaned up, like, I don't know, maybe the text is not aligned properly in some section or something like that. So I want to read through it and make sure everything is smooth sailing for May 1st, which is when the new edition of Aurora and Luna will be released. And then number three, I want to read through it and make note of anything, any thread that I kind of started in Aurora and Luna that I intended to get back to in the Solar Queen, that I maybe forgot about when I was outlining and drafting this book, because I know there's a few things, even if they're not things that I'm really going to make a lot of progress on in this book, I still want to mention them a few times just to keep them fresh. So I need to reread Aurora and Luna. That's step number 1. Step number 2, I'm going to take at least a week off of writing and creating entirely. I'm going to do this, though, not right now, but when I finish the other thing that I'm working on that I'm not talking about publicly yet. Yeah, that's the illustration stuff. I need to finish one more illustration, and then I will take a nice break off of creating entirely for at least a week. I'll do a lot of reading, a lot of gaming, just really recharge. I've been very burnt out. I've been struggling with burnout so badly these last, I don't know, 6 to 8 months. I need to recover from that. I need to rest and recharge and just take some time for me. Then, after I've had hopefully a month away from the manuscript, The Solar Queen, I will sit down and read through The Solar Queen, and I will make more notes on things that I need to change and fix and add in and maybe take out and all that. I'll make more notes for the surgery that is the developmental edit and the revision. And then I will get to revising. Now, when it comes to revising, I think I'm going to be doing at least 3 passes. The first pass will really be the most creative pass, and that will be me going through the whole book, kind of taking a bird's eye view and writing those chapters and those scenes that I neglected to write and fixing big problems, like problems that, you know, overlap between all the chapters, problems with the book as a whole. That'll be the first developmental edit, and that will probably be the hardest developmental edit, and it will probably take me the longest. Then the plan is to go through each point of view, because this book is multi-POV, and to do a pass through each point of view. So to do a pass where I'm editing just Luna's chapters, and a pass where I'm editing just Zale's chapters, and then just Aiden's chapters, and just Sky's chapters, and just Daisy's chapters. Just to make sure that their story is seamless, to make sure that their motivations are staying consistent, and like if they are changing, that it flows and it makes sense. Because that was one of the challenges of drafting this book, is 1 minute I'd be in Luna's point of view and I'd have these motivations to keep in mind, and then the next minute I'd be in Aiden's point of view and I'd have very different motivations to keep in mind. And I just need to go through and just focus on one point of view at a time and make sure that everything lines up properly. And then I'll do a chapter by chapter dev edit where I go through, and that'll probably be the chapter where I take a lot of unnecessary things out and just make sure everything reads really smooth, make sure the pacing's right, make sure that the story makes sense. Even if the language, even if the prose isn't quite where I want it to be yet, the story flows and makes sense, and that it's something a reader would want to keep reading. And then I'll get into the line edit, but that'll be a whole other phase of the project. So this next phase is developmental editing. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm also terrified because the thing about drafting, I don't find drafting that hard. Everyone always says, oh, drafting must be the hard part, eh? Like the blank page, the blank canvas. In a sense, sure, but also with the first draft, as you can tell by my 1,200 comments, near 1,300 comments, if there's something that doesn't work, I just leave a comment and move on. And I think that's good because it ensures that I actually keep writing the book. However, it does leave me a lot of work to do in my dev edit, and that's why I'm terrified, because this is definitely the most complex, most challenging, most hardest book that I have ever written. The first book in the series is pretty straightforward. This book is a lot more challenging. There's a lot more moving parts. There's a lot more things to juggle, things that need to line up at the right time. And yeah, it's a headache, and I think that revising it is going to be a headache. But I think it's also going to be so rewarding, and I'm really looking forward to it, but I'm also terrified of it. So yeah, I'm just about to enter the belly of the whale with this project. But I'm gonna take some time away from it first, and I'm gonna take some time off first. Feels really surreal to be here, being done the first draft. It always feels surreal to be done the first draft, and I always get this like imposter syndrome when I finish my first draft. I think the only time I didn't was with Aurora and Luna, because with all my other books, I failed to write an ending on the first draft. With my horror novel, I did eventually get that ending written, but not until the line edit. I didn't even get it written on the developmental edit. Then with the other novels I've drafted, they just don't have an ending, and the collection of essays that I drafted doesn't have a conclusion, and my intention was to, again, write it during the developmental edit. I think that's kind of my style. I've heard that's a thing for discovery writers, is that we tend to write our endings later on in revision. So it's what I expected with the Solar Queen, and that is what happened. I don't yet know how I want to end the book. Like, I know the plot point it ends on, but I don't know the exact scene I want it to end on, if that makes sense. I don't know what will be the most satisfying and what will make the most sense for the story. So I've gotten through all my plot points, which is good. On other projects, I can't even say that I've gotten that far with my ending. I just need to make it a nice, satisfying-ish ending. I say ish because this is like one long story, so I don't think you're ever really going to truly be satisfied with the Sun and Moon Saga until you finish reading the last book. That's just the kind of story it is, but I do need to wrap things up. I also didn't keep writing the ending because I think the ending is already too long. It has a very different ending than the first book. The first book ends very abruptly. This book has a lot of long, drawn-out scenes after the climax, and yeah, I don't know if it's gonna work. I won't know until I read through it. I might need to shorten things, and yet I also feel like I need to write more to give it some nice little tie-up at the end. And also, I just want to say, like, this book is not only very different from the first book, but I think it's also going to be very different than the other books in the series, at least based on what I have planned. I mean, the next several books that I have planned are once again quest fantasy, much like the first book. This book wasn't a quest fantasy. This book was more of an information plot, more of a mystery, and it's just been a really weird experience writing it when I know that most of the books I have planned for this series are quest fantasy. And I don't know if it's good to have the second installment in a series be so different from what the rest of the series will be, but that's just kind of where the story is going at this point in time. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it reads when I read through it, but I need to be patient because right now the thing that will serve the project best is just giving it some space. But I think that's everything I wanted to say. There's probably more, but my mind is blanking right now, and I really need to take a shower desperately. I really need to wash my hair, so I think that's going to be where I end the vlog. As always, all my links are down in the description. Links to buy my books, links to join the Lunar Coven, links to my music, links to everything. I'm not going to list them all individually because I'm very, very tired and I feel myself crashing after finishing the first draft of the Solar Queen, so I'm just going to go take a shower, practice some yoga, make some dinner, and play some video games. And I will talk to you in the next vlog. Until then, stay cozy.